Okay, so you've sent in a ton of questions about fake news.
Yeah.
And honestly, who hasn't felt overwhelmed by all the information out there?
Right. It can be a lot.
It really can. But that's why we're here today,
You
to
know,
help you understand the essentials without getting lost in all the noise. So,
when we talk about fake news, we're basically talking about false information disguised as news.
yeah.
But the definition is slippery.
Yeah.
And this kind of sensationalistic reporting isn't new.
Oh, no, not at all.
No. It's been around since the late 1800s.
Wow. So how do we even start to untangle this?
Well, researchers are moving towards using the term information disorder more and more.
That's interesting. Why is that?
Well, it's a broader term and more neutral. It helps us move away from the loaded term fake news.
I see. So what's the practical difference for us?
Think of it this way. Fake news is often driven by money, like those clickbait articles trying to make money from ads. But disinformation is designed to cause harm. It's usually politically motivated. And the wild thing is that social media has amplified all of this.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it feels like a perfect storm, right?
It does.
You've got this incredible political division, this idea that your personal beliefs can somehow be more important than facts.
Right.
And then you've got our natural tendency to seek out information that confirms what we already believe.
Absolutely. And then social media algorithms show you more of what you're already engaging with.
Exactly. It's no wonder trust is eroding.
It is.
Yeah.
But to be fair, this isn't entirely a new phenomenon. I mean, think all the way back to 44 BC,
Okay.
when Octavian used slogans on coins to spread bad stuff about Mark Antony.
Wow, that's like targeted messaging in ancient Rome.
Exactly, early propaganda. And then you have the printing press, which was a huge turning point.
I can imagine, for better and worse, right?
Totally. It made sharing information on a large scale possible, but it also led to the first massive news hoax.
Really?
Yeah, in 1835, it was called the Great Moon Hoax.
What happened?
The New York Sun published these wild stories about life on the moon.
Like what?
Oh, bat creatures and blue unicorns.
Wow.
And they claimed it was all based on the astronomer Sir John Herschel's discoveries, which of course wasn't true. It's a total fabrication, but people loved it.
I bet.
It was a sensation. It boosted their sales massively. It just shows how quickly a good story can spread, even if it's completely made up.
It's incredible. And then later on, you have yellow journalism in the late 19th century with Pulitzer and Hearst battling it out.
Oh, yeah.
And it was all about shocking headlines. Facts didn't seem to matter as much.
Right, exactly. They were publishing exaggerated, often false stories to sell more papers.
And wasn't it even suggested that this type of journalism contributed to the start of the Spanish-American War?
Some argue that yes, by whipping up public sentiment. And that's when the term fake news started to gain traction. Right. Eventually, there was a backlash.
People wanted more reliable information.
They did. That's where papers like the New York Times came in, emphasizing objectivity. It shows this ongoing tension between grabbing attention and reporting the truth.
Absolutely. And the 20th century had some pretty stark examples of this too, right? Like the propaganda during World War I. The story about German corpse factories was completely made up.
But a complete fabrication.
Mm-hmm.
But it really influenced public opinion.
Yeah. And who can forget Orson Welles' War of the Worlds broadcast in 1938? It actually caused mass panic.
That was wild. And of course, Nazi Germany's propaganda machine was a terrifying example of state-sponsored disinformation. So these historical moments show how powerful manipulated information can be and how dangerous it can be. And with the internet, it spreads so much faster.
It does. So what should we be looking out for today? What are some red flags that might indicate we're dealing with unreliable information?
Okay, so first, obviously, check for factual errors.
Right.
But also be wary of super sensational headlines.
Oh, yeah.
The ones designed to trigger your emotions and make you click.
Clickbait.
Exactly. And then look at the website itself. Does the web address look strange? Is it mimicking a legitimate news site? Are the authors credible?
Right.
Or do they have a history of spreading fake news? Are the headlines all in caps? Does the content actually match the headline? Is it old news being presented as new?
Those are really helpful practical tips. What about the source itself? What should make us suspicious?
Look for a lack of transparency.
Okay.
If there's no clear About Us page, or if the site is crammed with ads, or if there are no dates or author names, be careful.
Right.
And if they're relying on unnamed sources without a good reason, or using links that don't actually support their claims.
That's all suspicious.
Yeah. And remember, satire can sometimes be mistaken for real news, so
Yeah.
context is key.
That's a good point. So how do legitimate news sources distinguish themselves?
Well, they're committed to the truth. They have fact-checking processes. They strive for impartiality and fairness. They have clear ethics guidelines, and they're transparent about who they are and how to contact them.
That makes sense. But knowing what to look for is one thing. What can we actually do to combat this? It feels like a huge problem.
It is a huge problem, but there are things we can do. Media literacy is crucial. Learning how to think critically.
Okay.
There's some great resources out there that break down the process of evaluating sources and reading beyond the headlines.
And fact-checking organizations are doing such important work, too.
Oh, absolutely. Groups like factcheck.org, PolitiFact, and Snopes, they do independent verification. Supporting them is a really concrete step.
It is. What about the platforms themselves? What are they doing?
They're trying different things. Content moderation, partnering with fact-checkers, tweaking their algorithms to limit the spread of misinformation.
Right.
And they're even experimenting with pre-bunks, trying to debunk false narratives before they take hold.
Interesting.
But it's a massive challenge.
I can imagine.
Just because of the sheer volume of information out there.
So what can we do as individuals in our daily lives?
A lot, actually.
Yeah.
First, pause before you share anything.
Good advice.
And think critically about what you're seeing.
Okay.
Verify information with multiple reputable sources.
Okay.
Be aware of your own biases.
Oh, that's a hard one.
It is. We all tend to believe things that align with our existing beliefs, right?
Right.
So being aware of that is key. And support local journalism. Report misinformation when you see it. And try to have respectful conversations about these issues, sticking to facts.
Great advice.
And there are also browser extensions and apps that can help you evaluate information.
So it seems like there are tools and strategies available.
There are.
But I think it's also fascinating to consider why people create and share this kind of content in the first place. What are some of the main motivations?
Well, political motives are huge.
Yeah.
Trying to boost support for one side or undermine the other. Financial gain is another big one.
Like we talked about with clickbait.
Exactly. Those sites can make a lot of money from ads. And then there's the desire for social influence, wanting to gain followers and fit in with online groups. And sometimes it's just for entertainment or even just an honest mistake where someone believes something that isn't true.
So there are a lot of factors at play.
There are.
It's really complex. But understanding the history, the signs, and the motivations definitely makes you more aware. It highlights the need to be really careful and thoughtful about what we consume and share.
It does. And remembering that we all have biases is a good first step to overcoming them.
It is. Okay, so here's a final thought for you. Considering the long history of fake news and how technology keeps changing, what do you think is the single most important skill for navigating the information age moving forward? And if you want to learn more, be sure to check out those media literacy resources and fact-checking organizations we talked about.
Great advice.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.